Alright, let's continue jamming along. I'd like to take just a couple of minutes and work out an area for the brake lights back here. So what I'm going to do is begin by grabbing our the create polygon tool, not the split polygon tool. And we've got a picture that shows these. So you'll notice they're divided into 4 uneven segments. So, one large one, then one slightly thicker one, 2 thin guys. So you got to kind of play with that. It's also, again, one of those areas where if you're a couple of micrometers off, nobody's going to see but you. So what I'll do is we'll create a couple of points here along this NURBS curve we have back here at the back. And then I'll just create and tweak my shape based on that. I'm going to curve snap this next point back here. Now this is nowhere near where it needs to be. It needs to be up and probably in quite a ways, but this will be a nice place to start. And whoops, I hit the Z key. And you know what happens when you hit the Z key? You lose your polygon, so don't hit the Z key. Now back to what I was doing. We'll pull a lot of this up as we go. And curve snap. We could go all the way to the end, I suppose, if we just really wanted to, and use this whole polygon sheet to get the brake lights started, which is fine. That'll totally work for what we've got in mind, or what I've got in mind anyways. I'd like the rounding on the brake light to match the rounding we have at the back bumper, or the back of the fender, so I may end up creating the same amount of detail. For starters, though, let me grab the edges here around this fender. And let's extrude these backwards to create a little bit of thickness. I'll frame up on them so I can rotate around them. Extrude edge, let's go to world mode, and we'll just push these back in Z for the time being, just so I have some sort of thickness under which I can wedge the light that I'm creating, or light system anyways. And I'll grab the split edge ring tool to add detail quickly. We'll put one split here in the middle. Now, if I take a look at this, we've got kind of a change in plan, so to speak, because I would like this vertex to actually snap up here, giving us room for this little orange strip that goes here underneath. And I have no idea if that's a reflector or if that actually lights up. Let's kind of make it up as we go, but I'll lift this up to also create some room. Now I can snap this over, and this means I need 2 more edges in this direction to get the amount of detail I need here. So let's just press Y, and I'll create 1, 2 splits. I love that tool. I mean, I can't even stress to you how much I love that new tool. And we will snap, snap, and this last guy we will also snap. Alright, now for our horizontal detail, or I mean it's vertical edges, but it's controlling the horizontal rounding. Actually, before I do that, let me clean up some of what we've got here, because we know we want this to create some slight roundedness. So we'll go with that for now and probably tweak it out later. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edges here on the back fender. So let's go ahead and replicate that here on this model. We'll grab split edge ring tool again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in relatively similar locations. Switch back over to vertices, and here we go. We'll just point snap over to corresponding verts. And looking good. Now notice what I'm doing here. I'm snapping these out in the Z direction just to create a little bit of flattening. And it also gives me a perspective as to how far back to pull some of these. Now, something else to keep in mind, I don't want there to be a lot of nasty indentions. Excuse me. Start keeping a jug of water on hand. And just kind of create some general rounding. If we shade up the view, you can kind of see where this is going. Pull that out, you start to notice some rounding really kind of hit home with this set of moves. Whoops. Pull this out. Okay, now if we come back here to the back, we can kind of see how the brake lights line up, and it looks like the detail we have is going to be perfect for creating those segments. What I'm going to do is kind of line things up to really generally fall in line with these edges. Now notice I'm not pulling it right to the middle of the drawing. The first reason is because I don't think anybody's going to notice. The second reason is I think this is probably a bit more accurate. And, let's see, there's a third reason somewhere. Never mind. I don't know. There's more reasons, I guess. Coming this summer, more reasons to model with Zach. Okay, and we'll pull this over. Now, I'm going to kind of ignore what I see in the drawing, because I'm looking over here at the photo, where this is, pretty much a straight up and down shot. You know, the car's tilted slightly to the right, because we're taking a nice turn. But it looks like these pretty much point straight up and down, and since our car is currently straight up and down, we might as well follow that. Now, if I were to pull this over and back up, create a little bit of gappage, but nothing I'd really create a fuss about. Okay, so this area will become the segment of our first part of the brake light, as you've probably already guessed. Okay, and we round out, and we round out. Okay, and we'll just start lining these up similarly. Now I can use the drawing for a little bit of a guideline here. We want these to be parallel. I'll pull this up and in just a little bit. Yeah, there'll be a little bit of gappage when we're done, but I don't think it's going to really hurt anything. So wide, and then two thin ones, and then we're done. Let's go back here to the rear view again and make sure that all of these stay nice and pretty much flat. Okay, now if I deselect everything, what do we got? Something that is very, very faceted. So let's see here. If let's go soften, harden, edge. If I just go soften all the way across, there's what we have, which is a lot more pleasing to the eye. Now, it's nothing we can really maybe gauge too tremendously much, but it's hard to tell if there's actually a black frame around these or if these actually sink in. So, again, we kind of fall into what do we interpret to be there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up some of these gaps that we're starting to be able to see, and we'll just kind of take an average. Like I can pull this down just a little bit, and I think that cleared up all of the gaps I saw earlier. So yeah, that fixes that right up. Okay, now let's grab selections of faces. And before I do anything, I'm going to want to delete history, because I may have to go in and grab historical nodes. So I don't want all these other nodes that I don't need anymore in my way. We'll grab all of these, and let's extrude these faces. And we have that lovely offset value, which we can use to shrink this in. Just be really careful of this, because if you go really far, you'll notice some really odd things begin to happen. But within reason, you know, if you keep this relatively tight, you'll get a really nice offset for your surface. Now we can grab this strip and do the same thing. And I think we use 0.04 there, so let's try that again. And do it again. And do it again. Okay, so there's the little gaps there. Now, these gaps in between the lights might be a little bit overdone, but the altogether gap around the outside isn't bad at all. So this is where I kind of want to be able to reach in here and grab historic nodes. Let's try setting these down to like I don't know. If I do 0.1, how's that? Looks a little too thin, but you got to remember you need 2 of these offsets in between each of the lights. So let's try 0.01 again. Yeah, that's not bad. That actually works out really well right there. And go back up to the next node. 0.01. And the last node, 0.01. Yeah, I think that's going to work out really well. Now, I would like some more thickening, however, here on the outside, so we'll have to do this manually. We can just grab vertices and curve snap them in on their own edges to create that. Now here's an interesting situation because we want this to come inward, but we don't really have an edge that we can follow. So one of the tricks that I use when I have to do this, and I think you'll see this trick in a couple of other areas throughout this class, and you've already seen extensions of the trick. So let's frame up, rotate around. You get really tight sometimes. Your viewport goes a little nuts. Let's go ahead and create a curve with our EP curve tool, and I'll point snap and point snap. So there's our curve. Let's frame up on it, and I'm going to press insert, and I'll curve snap the pivot here to the base of the curve. Press insert again, scale the curve up, and you'll notice now it's something nice that we can snap a vertex to. So we'll grab this vertex, curve snap, so somewhere right along there will work out just fine. When you're done, delete the curve. You don't need it anymore. Alright, and we'll shade everything back up and continue our trek around the outside of the light. Now, here you have something kind of interesting, but nothing to really worry about, because you're just curve snapping 2 verts that are right next to one another. Now let's do that little trick that we did again. I'll grab my EP curve tool, and we will point snap, enter, insert, curve snap, boom, insert, scale, VoIP, and very fast. And curve snap inward. Actually, just about to its extreme. I guess will work out just fine. Let's make sure we get rid of that curve because we don't need it anymore. More curve snapping. Trick again. Boom, boom. Enter. Insert. Probably just point snap this time. Scale. There you go. In fact, maybe just a little more just in case. You can't really overdo it on that scale. So, whoops. Alt. Mouse drag. And let's see. Something kind of like that. Kill out the curve. And just continue now. Of course, all I'm doing is making sure these edges remain parallel to one another as I bring in, or at least close enough that it's hard to tell the difference. And this one will just kind of pull up like so. Okay, so yeah, there we go. Let's shade things back up, and we've outlined the lights pretty well. So now let's grab all of the faces. In fact, hang on, before I do anything, let me make sure that everything is nice and rounded. It's going to be very important as we continue. Control-click on the x-axis, and maybe tuck this in just a little bit, and pull this down, more or less just cleaning up that topology. More the same here. Yeah, I think that's going to work out pretty well. Alright, and we'll grab all of the faces for our lights. Oh, make sure you don't get any of those little pieces that go in between the gaps. And all of these all around, and let's extrude them inward just slightly. And we'll hit G, extrude again, take our offset, set this down to, I don't know, like 0.0, let's see what 0.01 looks like. That'll probably work out just fine. And let's hit G again, and we'll pull this back out most of the way. And there we go. Now, if I were to take this and hit Control tilde, here's what we get. Which is going to end up being a close representation of what we need. Of course, we just have a little bit too much rounding at the corners. And actually, I mean, it looks kind of cool in its own way. Like you've got some sort of custom cover for your lights. We'll need to sharpen it back up, but for the time being, it's going to work out just fine. No worries, because we can always crease some of those corners in a little bit down the road. Let's take this back down, unsmooth that for now. And we have the sort of blinker or reflector area that is kind of chiseled into the back or bottom of this. So let's grab all of these edges and we'll extrude them. I'll switch over to world mode and we'll pull these in and down. It looks like we have a little bit of cleaning we could do here. Like maybe all of these verts. Let's see, I'm not 100% sure. Let's double check in case I've lost sense of my axis. Yeah, it looks like these could probably be pulled out. Yeah, it should help. So we'll pull this out a little bit with it. Okay, not bad. Let's take another look at our photo. We'll maybe bring that down just a little bit further. Like so. Okay. Now, looks like there's a little bit of a frame, if you will, around that reflector. So what I'll do is we'll do an extrusion. We'll take that offset, set it down to something really low, like 0.01. We'll extrude in just a little bit. Offset again. And extrude out. Alright, so that's going to take care of our brake lights. And things are starting to look good all over. So that's some nice work back there in this area. I'm going to take a look up here at the roof, which needed some help at least a few minutes ago when we were up here. Let me grab some of these verts and frame up on them. We would like the thickness of this area up here to kind of fall more closely in line with the rest of this. Maybe clean up some curvature on this panel. So let's see, if I were to take this and switch over to the smooth model on both, this is kind of just poking through. I don't really have a problem with that. Let's see, also you have to remember to ignore the funny little darkening from the normals here. We can't really fix that right now without breaking the continuity of our smooth mesh. Yeah, not bad. Let's see, let's grab some of these vertices out here at the edge, and I'll pull these downwards. Maybe pull these up a little bit. It's one of those things where you kind of have to rotate around and just kind of see how everything lines up and give it your best shot. Now, also, don't know if we can make it out here. Actually, yeah, you can. There is the gap in between this panel that we're working on and the next sheet down is filled in, and there's a brake light up there. How cool is that? It's a very thin gap, and it's a thin gap here, too, so that's good to know. I'm thinking maybe, just maybe, that we could do it with a tad more rounding on these sheets, just with those vertices. Should make this a little more parallel. That's nitpicky, I know, but it's just kind of how it goes sometimes. Okay, let's grab the roof, and I'll take these edges all the way around. And let's go into wireframe so we can see them all. I'll grab this one too, even though he's kind of out of the way. We'll probably have to fill something in here for if at any time later in the future we open up the trunk. But we'll examine the necessity of that later. Let's go ahead and grab these edges and we'll extrude them down. Now notice Y doesn't really work for us. I'll move them down in world Y for now and just reserve the right to tweak later as we go. The point of all that was to create the appropriate thickness that we have here on the trunk. Let's see, if I grab this vertex, this should give us a nice pivot point upon which we can look at the situation. Grab this vertex and I'll snap it over here, and I'll just kind of curve snap this here along the polygon edge. So these are all in line with one another. Same story here. So some minor tweaks to clean some of that up. Alright. Now that brake light. I mean, there's a lot of different ways we could do this. What I think I'm going to do is create a separate piece of geometry, sort of a block that we'll put in here that's got the brake light already built into it. Yeah, that's not too bad, really. Let's go back to our photo. And, just a little rectangular piece that maybe later on a texture artist could grab a hold of and slap a nice, bright, glowing texture on. We could extrude it out of here. I just don't think I want to do that because this piece is going to be smooth, and I don't necessarily want to smooth this piece I'm about to build. So let's do something we haven't done yet, I don't think, in this model anyways. Let's create a cube. And let's see, I'll just point snap this right back here. Scale it down nice and flat. And I'll scale this out to the width that we require. And let's see, we have, 4 panels running in this direction on most of these pieces. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll end up with subdivisions width. Let's see, isn't it like, it's not quite 9, is it? Or is it 9? It's 8. And we end up with 4 on each side. And then we can just take all of these faces, nuke them out. Stack this up. Pull down just a little bit, slide backwards. And now let's just kind of start doing the honest to goodness grabbing of vertices and modeling. Actually, let me grab edges. It might work a little better in this case. Lift up. And alright, and we'll just take these and pull them down, sort of right behind these panels, where nobody can see them. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some of these verts and slide them back. Now, yes, I know this is changing all 3 of those panels, but I don't really think that's going to make too much of a difference in this case. Yeah, I think we'll be just fine. And start pulling these verts down. Actually, let me do this. Let me grab... Excuse me. Sorry about that. And let's try to keep all of these level with one another up to a point. Or not. Nah, I won't worry about it. That would be overly nitpicky, and I don't even think it's necessary, so I'll just start tucking these down inside. And over like so, kind of fill in this area. Now I'm just using those arrow keys again because I want to get these really close to the surface. Now I can take these two faces. And we can just extrude them. So let's use that offset. Maybe a little more. Okay, looks good. And we'll delete out this face. Take these two vertices and, excuse me. Goodness gracious. And let's snap these over. Like so. Cool. Now we have the opening for our brake light in place. So we'll extrude these back. Hit G. Adjust our offset. And extrude back out. Delete out these internal faces. Snap over. And there we go. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. So I think I'm going to go ahead and end this video for obvious reasons. We got a lot of good progress in, and we will pick things up in the next video. Thanks.